Well, we are watching stuff of absolute legend. So I want to make a show this morning encapsulating this very unique moment of 49ers insanity that we find ourselves in. First, I was up till about 4:30 a.m. writing this on the San Francisco Standard. I walked into that locker room last night and I stayed there until it was essentially empty. People had left for the night, and one of the last guys in there was Mac Jones, and went and talked with Mac about Brock Purdy's legendary performance. And I thought that the insight that I got from Mac really helped bring the story full circle. We're going to talk about all of it. It's up on the San Francisco Standard right now. I have it on the screen for you right there. There's Brock Purdy doing the Dougie again after one of his 5 touchdowns yesterday, 2 running, 3 through the air, 10 touchdowns in 2 games. Brock Purdy has 23 total touchdowns this year. That is the most for any quarterback in NFL history with 8 or fewer starts. People are going to be debating Drake May and Matthew Stafford for the MVP award, and it's going to go to one of those 2 guys. They've played the entire season. But both of those players, both May and Stafford, are lucky that Brock Purdy suffered a turf toe injury, because if he hadn't suffered a turf toe injury, he would be the likely favorite for MVP this year. You are looking at the best quarterback in football, period. I work on meritocracy. If you're new here, feelings don't matter. Facts matter here. And Brock Purdy is the best quarterback in football because he is produced that way this season. The media finally has to tell the truth about Brock Purdy because it is staring them right in the face, and you don't look very good if you ignore facts that are clear on display for everyone to see. That yesterday was a culmination of the past 6 games, and it was one of the most insane tightrope acts that we've ever seen. I would say, one of the historic numbers that I share in this article is that the 49ers became the first team in NFL history to win a game where their opposition scored over 35 points, where their opposition registered a defensive touchdown, where their opposition didn't allow any sacks, and where their opposition didn't have any giveaways. That literally, up until yesterday, had been an impossible game for an offense to win. When the Bears did all of those things, they didn't turn it over. They scored more than 35 points. They even got a defensive touchdown. It wasn't Brock Purdy's fault, but he was able to bounce back from it on the first play. The Bears did all of these things, like this whole list of things that had never resulted in a loss in NFL history. The 49ers found a way to win this game, to deal Chicago a loss in those circumstances. I think there was a certain beauty to the fact that the last overall pick from the 2022 NFL draft, Brock Purdy, who's been the victim of draftism, right? The true victim of draftism. People cannot believe how good he is because of where he was picked. Well, pick number 262 outdueled pick number 1 yesterday at Levi's Stadium. It was Caleb Williams who couldn't execute in the red zone the way that he needed to, and it was Purdy who went 5 for 5 in the red zone to provide the winning difference for the 49ers. And you know what's craziest about everything is the future. Like, what we saw last night will go down in 49ers history as one of the most entertaining games in this franchise's illustrious lore. But what comes next has the potential to be even more riveting. And it's going to happen on a short week because Seattle is coming into Levi's Stadium on Saturday. That's something that I think is really tough for both teams. But apparently ABC wanted the game. ABC flexed their muscles and they said, we want the 49ers and Seahawks in prime time on Saturday night. So the 49ers have to play 2 straight short weeks. And for the Seahawks, they They're coming across country. They had to play at Carolina yesterday, so I'm sure that they landed fairly late on Sunday back in Seattle. They're going to have to turn around and fly down to the Bay Area likely on Friday. A quick turnaround. This means that today is our only day without practice early this week. Normally it's Monday and Tuesday where we have a chance to reset a little bit, but we're only going to be resetting over the course of today before heading down to the facility in Santa Clara tomorrow. But that's just how things work sometimes. Sometimes you have to work around the NFL schedule, and that's what both the 49ers and the Seahawks have to do. When I talk about riveting theater moving forward, we are speaking right now on December 29th. It is 6 years to the day since this happened, since Dre Greenlaw stuffed Jacob Hollister at the goal line to preserve the 49ers division title and punch their ticket to the playoffs as the number 1 seed. 6 years ago today. So how wild is it that the 49ers and the Seahawks will play with the same exact stakes on Saturday night? This time it's going to be a 49ers home game. That was up in the Pacific Northwest when the 49ers won by a millimeter. The number 1 seed for the victor, a really tough path through the postseason for the loser. Obviously, the NFC Championship goes to the victor, but that number 1 seed is the most tangible reward that can come out of this football game. It's probably going to be raining in the Bay Area. It's going to be raining for several straight days. We don't know exactly how much. I looked at the forecast, 80% chance of rain. I actually think that it might favor the 49ers in this game because their defense has been struggling to such a great extent. So maybe this will help that defense get a little bit more of a handle against the Seahawks offense that hadn't been great over the course of the last month or two. That being said, the 49ers are playing elite offense right now, and you wouldn't want anything to put a damper on that or to slow that down. Both teams are going to have to deal with the same conditions. It's going to be fascinating. We'll talk about it more as the forecast clears or as the forecast becomes more apparent this week. But the fact that what happened 6 years ago in Seattle, which remains one of the most heartrending finishes in 49ers history, the fact that we have the setup for an encore on Saturday night after what we saw last night, which I think was a hybrid between the 49ers 48-46 win over the Saints in 2019 and the game right up on the screen. I mean, the goal line stand yesterday at the end of the game elicited the very same emotions as the Dre Greenlaw goal line stand against Seattle. The fact that we can turn around and say 6 days later, the Seahawks themselves are coming to town in a reprisal of the game that determined the 1 seed in 2019. This, you couldn't script this. It is absolute insanity. You guys get to watch Kyle Shanahan's speech to the locker room with me right now. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure most of you haven't seen it yet either. Mike just sent it to me. The 49ers just posted it. So let's listen in to Kyle Shanahan in the victorious 49ers locker room.
Guys, so proud of this team, man. Hey, what we just did at the Indy, all right, they beat everyone there in 2 minutes, but you guys were the best when your best was needed, man. All right, you stopped and got us that win, man. Austin, where you at, dude? Hey, for real though, that's the story of everybody in this team so far, man.
Hey, let's go, fellas, man. Way to be great, man. Everybody's sticking together, man. It's real love in this building, and you can feel it, bro. When we play with passion and love, hey, we can do anything we want to do, man. Let's do it, man. 9 on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Well, how fitting is that? They had Kendrick Bourne break down the team after the game, and Kendrick was on that 2019 team where the 49ers, that was the first winning season of the Kyle Shanahan era. They went 13-3. The path to the 1 seed involved those 2 epic wins that I talk about. The 48-46 win where Jimmy Garoppolo outdueled Drew Brees in the Superdome, and then the 26-21 win over the Seattle Seahawks in the final week of the regular season. I mean, the combination of offense and defense, a game that defense forgot, and then a goal line stand that will never be forgotten. I mean, that was yesterday's game. It was a game that defense forgot, and then a goal line stand that will never be forgotten. Many different characters. Some of them are the same. Kendrick Bourne was one of the characters who's the same. I think that Brock Purdy, who obviously won the round with the 49ers in 2019, I think it's especially symbolic because he plays like a hybrid of Drew Brees, whom the 49ers faced in that 2019 game against the Saints, and a prime Russell Wilson, whom the 49ers faced in that 2019 game against the Seattle Seahawks. Purdy is playing at an MVP level. He is yesterday. I mean, if you don't like the hybridization of Breeze and prime Russell Wilson, I think that's a tremendous compliment to Brock Purdy. But I can just tell you that he also plays like a hybrid of Joe Montana and Steve Young. In fact, Steve Young would agree with that notion. We can go right to the article up on the San Francisco Standard. Check this out. There was the touchdown to Kyle Juszczyk yesterday, which I think everyone recognized as a tremendous scramble and throw play from Brock Purdy. Steve Young took video of that and posted this. Steve Young saw that. Steve Young saw himself in Brock Purdy on that scramble play. So that, I mean, and the Montana parallels are I think clear as day. I mean, Purdy has just been so cool in the pocket. He's delivered in the biggest moments for the 49ers. He throws with touch, he throws with anticipation. There's this great meld with what Kyle Shanahan is doing. And I think, I talked about this being like an epic lightsaber duel yesterday between Shanahan and Ben Johnson. I mean, it was at just such a high level when you talked about the offensive play calling, the analytics behind clock control, behind game management, not only at the very end, but at the end of the first half. Everything made a difference yesterday. But Purdy, with the way that he operates under Shanahan's umbrella, it's evocative of the way that Montana worked with Bill Walsh when everything was so perfectly choreographed in some of those very, very best years. And, I'm sometimes accused of hyperbole here, but it's not hyperbole when you look at the production. He's at the top of the quarterback rankings by a country mile this year. What Purdy and Shanahan are accomplishing together, even without a full supporting cast, and we're going to have an update on Trent Williams later today. And I mean, that's going to be huge for the 49ers moving forward. But what Purdy and Shanahan are accomplishing together is nothing short of remarkable. I said that the 23 total touchdowns for Purdy are the most for any quarterback with 8 or fewer starts. But yesterday, for example, the 49ers went 8 for 11 on 3rd and 4th downs, which again is absurd. And again brings us to this graphic. It is Brock Purdy and everyone else in this league with a massive, massive gap in between. If you can't find Purdy, it's because he's over here on the upper right. I'm circling his logo. I mean, this right here is possibly the most staggering advanced stat graphic that I have ever seen. And the sample isn't tiny anymore either. Purdy has nearly 103rd and 4th down snaps, and he's outperforming the league, a league of professionals where the margins are narrow, by a gulf the size of the Pacific Ocean. The 3rd downs yesterday, and this is something I talked to Mac Jones about in the 49ers locker room. The 3rd and 4th downs yesterday, Purdy was so plugged in that he was headed to his 3rd read when he needed to without a problem. I mean, without even blinking, Brock Purdy was able to find Ricky Pearsall on one of the critical 4th down, or one of the critical 3rd down conversions in the 4th quarter. There was a 4th down conversion where he found Ricky Pearsall in the first half. A lot of these in breakers, perfect precision from Purdy perfect eye movement from Brock Purdy to move off the linebacker, move off the safety. And Ricky Pearsall was breaking ankles with some of his routes, including his 30-yarder down the sideline. I mean, it was orchestrated magic from the 49ers yesterday, and it was an example of a play caller and a quarterback being in perfect lockstep. And I don't think that people realize how hard it is to do that when there is zero margin for error, or essentially zero margin for error. The 49ers defense leaking so much oil that the offense had to score every single time they had the ball. That almost always will lead to at least a couple disastrous plays, because you're having to thread a needle. When you have to thread a needle and everything has to be perfect in this sport of football, look at what the Bears, their offense had to do the same thing because they couldn't stop Brock Purdy, yet the Bears choked at a couple of very, very key junctures. They couldn't hold up the perfect offense even against the 49ers defense that was so obviously overwhelmed against Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, and company. But the Bears ended up going 1 for 3 in the red zone. The 49ers, though, they went 5 for 5 in the red zone. I mean, it was a perfect apples to apples comparison yesterday. Both offenses were having their way, but both offenses needed to be absolutely perfect down the stretch of this game, and only one of them was. Brock Purdy in this game was 9 of 11 for 194 yards, 1 touchdown, a 149 passer rating on throws of 10 or more yards downfield. I mean, it was absolutely electric. Now, before the game, I got a chance to talk to Fred Warner down on the field, and then Matt Lively took this video of Fred Warner at the end of the game. Watch this. Fred Warner is the guy with the white hat in this video. The 49ers stormed the field in celebration after the final incompletion. You see Warner, he's hugging somebody wearing a red shirt. That's Warner hopping up and down, sprinting out onto the field, skipping out onto the field. Ankle looks healthy. Fred is gearing up to come back, folks. I know that I've been talking about this for weeks. I know that the national media finally seemed to catch wind of it this week. But if you want to talk about the 49ers as a football team and where they're obviously incomplete on the defensive side of the ball, where they've suffered all those injuries, they're in line to get a massive boost from a future Hall of Fame player in Fred Warner, who, again, has not been rehabbing 6 hours a day to come back in week 1 of 2026. Fred Warner is on track to be back this season. The 49ers now just have to make sure that they can extend this season far enough so that Fred Warner can make a safe return. And that is why the juncture that the 49ers are at right now is so damn crazy. Because if they win on Saturday, and I think the Seahawks are now 1-point favorites. The 49ers we saw yesterday were 1.5-point favorites. It might vacillate between the two. It's essentially a toss-up, right? It's essentially a toss-up. They played in week 1. They're going to play in week 18. It's going to bookend the regular season. It was epic up in Seattle. I expect it to be epic again at Levi Stadium on Saturday. But if the 49ers win, it is going to be very, very difficult, no matter how flawed the 49ers defense is. It's going to be very difficult for any team in the NFC to travel to Levi Stadium and have to take on a rested 49ers team coming off a bye with Kyle Shanahan having 2 weeks to prepare. The only 2 times that the 49ers have earned the number 1 seed under Shanahan, they have made the Super Bowl. They're 2 for 2. One of the reasons that that's happened, one of the primary reasons that that's happened, it is very difficult to handle a Kyle Shanahan offense when Kyle has had more time to prepare than you've had, when his team is fresher than your team. The 49ers are 1 win away, and it's going to be a big gut check against Seattle because it's on a short week. And, we know all the injuries for the 49ers. We know Fred Warner's not going to be back this week. It's going to be Very, very difficult for the 49ers to strain through this. But if they can get through this on Saturday as slight home underdogs right now, they will have the perfect setup, especially given their deficiencies as a football team right now, for a run at the Lombardi Trophy. Because the Super Bowl is at Levi's Stadium as well. You know, we're counting this every week. We said 5 straight home wins and the 49ers will hoist the trophy. Now it's down to 4 straight home wins. And no, they don't necessarily have to win on Saturday to stay alive, but it will get a whole lot more difficult if they lose, because then they'll have to turn around, fly straight to Philadelphia in all likelihood as the number 6 seed, and they would have to win on the road. They almost certainly wouldn't be able to play back at Levi's Stadium in this 2025 season. So the hinge point, just as it was 6 years ago to the day when Dre Greenlaw stonewalled Jacob Hollister, the hinge point is Saturday at Levi's Stadium. The 49ers, you know, I walked into that locker room yesterday and I started talking to Chase Lucas, and he told me they actually have a play in their defensive playbook that's called Greenlaw, named after this legendary moment in 49ers history. They didn't run it yesterday. It seemed that there was some divine intervention at work for the 49ers 6 years ago today and also last night. They were in man coverage against a mesh concept for the Chicago Bears last night, and Chase Lucas said that he totally lost the running back. And obviously the 49ers didn't cover DJ Moore, who was wide open on the far side of the field. But Chase Lucas still somehow found his way right into Caleb Williams' line of vision. And you can watch that last play. I mean, I think I could write a full article, just like I wrote a full article here about Brock Purdy, talking to Mac Jones, talking to a bunch of guys in the 49ers locker room. I think I could write a full article just on that last play and all that broke in the 49ers' favor and how they just were able to dig deep to, I mean, it was one of the most spectacular moments in 49ers franchise history. It's an instant classic, right? But one of the things was that Chase Lucas, almost by accident, got himself into the throwing lane for Caleb Williams, and it seemed that it was just this God-guided moment where he just felt where he had to be. I saw a tweet, and I haven't verified this yet, that a couple of the linebackers decided to drop into coverage. I think it was Tatum Bethune and D. Winters might have decided to drop into coverage, even though they were supposed to blitz. And I'm going to verify that over the course of this week. But it seemed that there were so many weird last-minute unplanned shifts on that last play because it was just chaotic. I mean, the Bears themselves were not properly aligned on the last play. Ben Johnson said that in his post-game press conference. And Kyle Shanahan in the 49ers press conference said that he sensed that, which is why he didn't call timeout for his 49ers defense. Often in a situation like that, you call timeout so the defense can dig in. Shanahan sensed some discombobulation for the Bears. He didn't call timeout. Then there was discombobulation from the 49ers after the snap. But in the heat of the moment, in the heat of battle, even if things didn't go the way they were scripted, the 49ers were able to get into the right position to make the stop. And a ton of credit. I mean, we can write. I think that Mike is sending me a bunch of photos of the last play, and we can share photos. We just can't share video. So what I'm going to do is save a bunch of these photos, and we can go through it. Yetur Gross-Matos is the player I want to talk most about, because he had this closeout on Caleb Williams that definitely provided the difference on the play and was really emblematic of the freakish athleticism that he brings to the table that the 49ers had missed over several weeks while he was out this season. So I've got a bunch of still shots. I'm going to put them all up on the screen here, and we can go through these one by one as we're looking at this play. So where do we start? Hold on. All right. We could start at the snap right here. So there was discombobulation at the snap. 49ers decided not to call timeout. That's a credit to Kyle Shanahan. It reminds me a little bit of the Super Bowl where the Seattle Seahawks lost to the New England Patriots. Seattle, they didn't hand off to Marshawn Lynch, and they were a little discombobulated at the line of scrimmage, and Bill Belichick chose not to call timeout. He sensed that he should just let things play out, and that's when Russell Wilson threw the interception to Malcolm Butler on the slant pattern. He was trying to go throw right to, who was it, Lockett? Yeah, I think it was Ricardo Lockett, and Malcolm Butler stepped in front of him, and it turned out that chaos helped the New England Patriots defense on that day. I think that the chaos of this final play helped the 49ers. So here's the snap. Here's the initial pressure. The pressure was on the Bears, and then Bryce Huff heightened the pressure. You can see Huff winning against left tackle right here. Mariano Rivera was the great closer of the New York Yankees. Robert Saleh has compared Bryce Huff to Mariano Rivera. He says that Bryce is a player who's able to notch wins at the biggest moments. Even if stuff hadn't been going well over the preceding 59 minutes, Bryce Huff, with his burst and talking to Mac Jones about this, he has an ability to kind of dip his body. This is what you want out of an elite edge rusher. You have to be able to dip your body and kind of surf a wave. You kind of run the hoop around the tackle. You immediately see Bryce Huff winning, and you immediately see Caleb Williams panicking. There was no set pocket for Caleb Williams on this critical play. I think this is Cleveland Farrell over on the left side. He's being blocked. The 49ers saw their linebackers drop in coverage, so they might be showing blitz. I'm going back to the first frame here, and you could see that the 49ers are at least bluffing a heavy blitz, but they end up backing off. And it ultimately is only rush 2 for San Francisco. It's Bryce Huff and Cleveland Farrell, with Sam Okawanu dropping into coverage, cutting off any potential throwing lanes to this part of the field. D. Winters, who was bluffing blitz right here, pre-snap, dropping into coverage for the 49ers. Yetur Gross-Matos, and I want you to keep a special eye on Yetur Gross-Matos. He's lined up on as an interior rusher right here for the 49ers. On the second frame, Yetur Gross-Matos has dropped into coverage, essentially building a wall at the goal line. Tatum Bethune, the linebacker, bluffing blitz right here in the middle, right near the A gap. He has dropped into coverage right behind Yetur Gross-Matos. I think that there's initial confusion here from Caleb Williams because everybody's dropping into coverage, but out of the two who are rushing, Bryce Huff is winning. And that's getting Caleb Williams very out of sorts immediately. Huff just barely missed Caleb Williams. I know I'm not allowed to play the actual clip because it'll get copyrighted. So you guys can go watch the actual clip. But Huff ran around the hoop, took a dive at Caleb Williams' ankles, and Williams was just able to get away from him. So he was able to break the pocket and start rolling to his left. At this point, I want you to watch Yetur Gross-Matos, who dropped back into coverage. This is a split-second decision that Yetur had to make. He was not designed like that. They did not task him with rushing the passer off the snap, but this is where he had to think on his feet. There's a whole lot of grass in between Yetur Gross-Matos and Caleb Williams. There's a whole lot of grass in between Yetur and the sideline. Remember, football fields are 53 yards wide. Yetur had to take the hypotenuse here. He had to run carefully, but he had to run freakishly fast in order to make sure that Caleb Williams did not get an edge, and also to make sure that Caleb Williams did not have a clear throwing lane. And Yetur Gross-Matos, he's over 6'5". You could see how tall of a frame he is. Every single bit of that frame mattered for the 49ers on this play. You can see in the next frame, he has taken a very appropriate angle to cut the corner off, to cut the edge off for Caleb Williams. Williams is not going to get to the edge against Yetur Gross-Matos here, just by the way that he's running. He's, the direction, I don't know if you could see my cursor. Yeah, you could see my cursor. The direction that he's running is like this way right here. Caleb Williams was not going to be able to get to the edge based on how quickly Yetur was moving, and that's where freakish athleticism from the hybrid defensive lineman comes into play. The 49ers had so many guys in coverage that they were essentially cutting off any passing lane to this side of the field. Now, whether it be by design or not, DJ Moore was left alone outside the frame to the left. But it's so hard and almost impossible to ask a quarterback to be able to flip his hips and throw back across the field. That's the opposite of what they're trained to do. So it was almost a necessary omission for the 49ers, who were cutting off everything in Caleb Williams' direct line of sight. Finally, Yetur took a dive at Caleb Williams. You go from this frame, see where Caleb is, see where Yetur is, and then go to the next frame, see where Caleb is, see where Yetur is. It was one of the greatest closeouts I've seen pass rushing wise in my time covering the NFL. It's been about a decade covering the NFL. Again, Yetur started here, started in between the hashes, and you see 94, and he ended here at nearly the 20-yard line at the boundary. I mean, Yetur Gross-Matos covered over 20 yards in just a few seconds to close out on Caleb Williams. I mean, the more I look at these pictures, the more insane this is. 94 is right here. A few seconds later, 94 is burying Caleb Williams right there. And this is after a long drive where the 49ers, I mean, they were talking about how tired they were. Everybody would be tired in this situation. You've been chasing Caleb Williams and the Bears around all game. You have to dig deep. As Diomedor Lenore said, we have to nut up. You have to dig deep and find a way to do something, a Herculean effort. And that's exactly what you saw from Yetur Gross-Matos here. And then there's this 49ers wall of defenders that had dropped into coverage, many of whom were like Sam Okawanu right here, normally defensive linemen who are rushing, but instead he is creating a red wall that Caleb Williams could not throw through, and the throw skipped on its way in to the intended target. Just crazy. A little diagnosis of one of the plays that you will never forget if you are a 49ers fan. Probably never forget if you are a Bears fan as well, because all the chips were on the table in that moment. And Robert Saleh found a way, and I can't wait to be in that locker room tomorrow and start asking some questions about the schematics of the play and about the drop from both of the linebackers, the drop from Sam Okawanu, the two-man rush. And I talked to Yetur yesterday, but I hadn't had a chance to fully appreciate exactly how far he had to run. And Mike has a great point. He said that maybe he's got some fresh legs because he's been out for a lot of this season. I mean, it was hard to be fully fresh. I know that he wasn't fully fresh, but I get in the larger totality of the season, maybe he had a little extra juice that provided the winning difference for the 49ers yesterday. Just absolutely astounding. All right, I'm going to answer some questions. I'm sure I have a ton to go through. The article is up on the San Francisco Standard. Would love for you guys to go check it out. This is the best chance to go support us at the Standard. Sign up, because we went through all of this. Talked to Mac Jones, talked to Purdy, talked to Christian McCaffrey, who had an amazing bit of insight on Kyle Shanahan and how he's been such a wonderful play caller for the 49ers. And we'll play that in a second. That's really good stuff from Christian McCaffrey. But we went through absolutely all of this. Purdy ranks as the number one quarterback in the entire NFL by a wide margin across every single metric. And it's going to be very hard for him to fall out of that spot in the final week of the season. Even against Seattle's really good defense, he's already played one of his best games against that excellent Seattle defense, and the 49ers are so dialed offensively now, and I think they should get George Kittle back. They're going to have to probably work without Trent Williams, but the level at which Purdy is playing, I mean, it's almost like a Jordan-esque level that we're seeing. The accomplishment of the game yesterday was unprecedented. Like, no one had ever won an NFL game. Like, an offense had never been good enough to overcome those defensive shortcomings. It's never happened in NFL history before. I mean, you could almost say it was like a Hall of Fame type of performance from Brock Purdy, but then you go back and say, well, he's been playing that way for 6 straight games now. He's breaking the league efficiency scales. I've showed you some of the charts, what the 49ers have and what they're working with entering this game against the Seattle Seahawks is absolutely special. We got a question. Do I think that Christian McCaffrey gets to 1,000? Well, how many receiving yards did he have yesterday? He needed 150 or 149. I have the box score right here. He had 41. So it's going to be about 110 receiving yards needed for Christian McCaffrey against the Seahawks. It's possible. I don't think that it's likely. I think that he's going to have a chunk catch or two to get on pace, and the 49ers cannot and should not call this game for Christian McCaffrey to reach this milestone. If it happens, it happens, but they need to call this game to win it against Seattle. And you know, maybe part of it will be Christian McCaffrey through the air. Maybe it will just work out in that way, but unfortunately for his 1,000 goal, the pace has not been followed over the course of the past few weeks, and that's just the way the cookie is going to crumble sometimes. Yes, Christian McCaffrey would absolutely trade the 1K for the number 1 seed. Nobody cares about these statistics right now. You know, like it's all hands on deck, win at all costs, find a way to get it done moving forward. Wow. Kyle Shanahan just jumped Mike Vrabel, Ben Johnson, Mike McDonald, and Liam Cohen as the favorite for the coach of the year. So I guess the odds now favor Kyle Shanahan to win coach of the year. And I mean, this is something that we've been hammering on for a couple weeks, multiple weeks already, but I didn't think that popular opinion would be correct and actually follow suit. That's a wild downstream effect of yesterday's game. That's crazy. Brock Purdy, since week 15, has the most yards in the NFL, the most total touchdowns in the NFL, the most first downs in the NFL, the highest completion percentage in the NFL, the most passing touchdowns in the NFL, the most first downs in the NFL, the most completions of 10-plus yards in the NFL, the highest passer rating in the NFL, and the highest pass touchdown percentage in the league, 11.3%. He would be the MVP favorite if he had not suffered the turf toe injury. Ricky Pearsall yesterday was a difference maker for the 49ers, and I found it interesting that Kyle Shanahan said that he was not on track to play on Saturday. He didn't think that Ricky was going to play, and then Ricky was able to tough it out. He even seemed to zing his knee again after the big 30-yard catch in the first half, but then Ricky was right back out there for the 49ers after spending some time with a trainer on the sideline. So that was a gutsy performance for Ricky Pearsall at a time when the 49ers absolutely needed it. They needed the 7 catches and 60 yards from Jake Tonjes without George Kittle. Remember that Tonjes spent 2 years on the Chicago Bears practice squad. So it was a bit of a revenge game for Jake Tonjes. And if they, I know that when Kittle has played, the Tonjes playing time has been very sparing, but I do wonder if Kittle does play, but there are injuries elsewhere, if they could find a way for Jake Tonjes to help pick up some of the slack, because he's making himself quite a bit of money with his performance this year. He was the guy who caught the touchdown from Brock Purdy against the Seahawks back in week 1. It's been 4 months since then. I mean, 4 months separating these two games, but it seems that time is a flat circle. We're right back to Jake Tonjes being one of the saviors of the 49ers season. And I do wonder if he's going to have an outsized role on Saturday, even if George Kittle returns. We got so much data that we're sifting through, I guess I should say. I'm going to look at some of the super chats. Should the 49ers bring up Sebastian Valdez? I don't think so. Valdez is a practice squad guy who's developing. I don't think that you're going to bring up players who are as inexperienced as Sebastian Valdez at a time when you probably need a little bit more experience. He's already gotten rewarded for his good performance in practice. Mike says the 49ers defense needs more stops against Seattle than Chicago. Probably, because I think Seattle's defense is going to be better than the Bears defense. It's going to be hard to drop 42 points on the Seattle Seahawks. That being said, the 49ers defense, let's not pretend like they were completely devoid of stops yesterday. They got punts out of the Bears on the first 2 drives. They got a punt out of the Bears at the end of the first half, which was massive. That was absolutely huge. That's one of the things that's most tied with winning, is who possesses the ball at the end of the first half. And they made sure it wasn't their opponent, the Bears. They held the Bears to a field goal in the fourth quarter, and then they got the goal line stop at the end. So that's 5 stops that the 49ers got yesterday. So it wasn't like every single time the Bears had the ball, they scored. The 49ers needed every inch of those 5 stops to get the job done yesterday. But those happened. I agree that they're going to need more against Seattle, but one of the narratives this week is going to surround Sam Darnold, who choked in the bright lights last year. 2 games last year, Sam Darnold had opportunities in 2 straight games, against the Detroit Lions and then against the Rams. The Lions was a Week 18 game for the Minnesota Vikings, and then the Rams game was a wild card game for the Vikings. 2 straight games at the end of the season, his performance plummeted. And the Lions weren't playing great defense last year. They had lost Aiden Hutchinson. The Rams were playing a lot better defense. They turned the corner at the end of the season, but Darnold was not ready for the bright lights. The same narrative seemed to be following him around a couple weeks ago when the Seahawks beat the Rams. But remember, it was 30-14 with not a lot of time left in the fourth quarter. And that's when the Seahawks got their special teams miracle. That's when Rashid Shaheed returned the punt for a touchdown and helped set the table for Seattle to roar back in that game. But I'm not 100% sure that Sam Darnold has fully put Clint Kubiak and that Seahawks offense at ease, especially in big-time bright light moments. And one of the big questions entering this game on Saturday will be, can Sam Darnold go toe-to-toe with Brock Purdy, even though Darnold will be facing a weaker defense than Brock Purdy is facing? The 49ers clearly, there's no debate about this, 49ers clearly have the quarterback advantage, and that's the main advantage you want to have entering this game against the Seahawks. My question is, how much of that advantage can Sam Darnold erase with improvement in crunch time? It's a fair question to ask, regardless of how much the 49ers defense struggled yesterday, because this is a different game and a different opponent for a 49ers team that is growing on a week-by-week basis. Even yesterday, we have a commenter pointing out that it was just 3-3 at halftime. Yeah, Seattle has not been playing great offense. I mean, I could go to the team tier chart here, and we can split this into the time since Brock Purdy has returned. And I think that this will help people understand where exactly the 49ers and Seahawks have stood over the course of the past 2 months. It is loading right now up on Ben Baldwin's website. All right, here we go. Who's ready for team tiers? Brock Purdy style. It is ready for you right now. Up on the screen. This is since Purdy took over as the starter in week 11, coming back from turf toe. You'll probably remember that last week's version of this graphic had the 49ers defense, like defense is on the y-axis and offense is on the x-axis. You'll probably remember that last week's graphic had the 49ers defense up here, right near the Rams. Yes, they got roasted yesterday for the majority of the game, so the defense drops down. The offense stays there with the New England Patriots as the best offense in the league since week 11. 49ers are a borderline tier 1 team since week 11. Now, look at their opponent coming up this next weekend. The Seattle Seahawks have been a below average offense since week 11. Something happened around midseason. Maybe it was defenses just getting more tape on the Darnold JSN connection. I don't know exactly what it was, but Darnold has not been as accurate. And the Seahawks have been far worse offensively than they were over the first several weeks of this year. The Seahawks were in this territory. They're an upper right team over the first couple months of the season. They have now been in the upper left quadrant, which means they've got a really good defense. But that offense has not been a world-beating offense. It has ranked significantly worse than the Bears, for example. So if the Bears, they put up 38 on the, or 31, the Bears put up 31 because the pick six does not get credited to Chicago's offense. They put up 31 against the 49ers. So let's just do some rudimentary math. If the Seahawks have been worse than the Bears offensively, and if the 49ers can find a way to make that be reflected in the Seahawks scoring total on Saturday, how much do you think the Seahawks score? 24? Say the Seahawks are a touchdown worse than the Bears offensively. Fine, 24 points. Then the question becomes, can the 49ers offense against this very good Seattle defense score more than 24? With Brock Purdy playing at the level that he's playing at, I think that the answer is yes. My gut feel, I wouldn't bet against the better quarterback. I wouldn't bet against the best quarterback in the league. The 49ers have that on their team right now. They have somebody who's number one across the board of any objective metric playing the most important position. You have unquestionably the best QB in the game on your team entering the most important game of the year. Now, the Seahawks have one of the best defenses in the game. Who wins that battle? Well, the first time that battle happened in week 1, Brock Purdy won it. He found a way to get it done even without George Kittle. This time he might have George on the offense. It was only about one drive of George Kittle back in week 1. But the 49ers have scored 127 points over the last 3 games. They are on a historic pace offensively. The Seahawks are a very good defense. All I know is that this sets up an awesome showdown on Saturday. I think a 49-minute show is about what we need. I have barely slept. I think I need some rest. But I'm doing my best to give you guys the ultimate 49ers coverage. So go ahead and sign up for the San Francisco Standard. There you have Brock Purdy doing the Dougie. He's vaulted himself into, he should get some MVP votes. I don't think he should win. I think he should get at least a couple votes based on how good he's been. One of the legendary victories in 49ers history. I was up till 4:30 a.m. I was up again at 7 a.m. today. I don't think I'm going to sleep today. We're going to have a Trent Williams update for you soon. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. We are currently at 96,776 subscribers. Let's get to at least 97K today. The goal is to get to 100,000 real subscribers as soon as possible. Become the first 49ers channel to 100,000 real subscribers. We already are the most watched 49ers channel by far. So I want to thank everybody for joining the show. We will talk to you very, very soon. Oh, and subscribe to the San Francisco Standard. This article is absolutely worth your time. Purdy, Steve Young, Joe Montana, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, 49ers, Seahawks. The stage is set after Purdy, the very last pick in the NFL draft, outdueled the top pick in the 2024 NFL draft, Caleb Williams, in spectacular fashion. See you guys in a bit.